they could have blocked those votes to get concessions in return. They haven't done that. Don't you think that that is a failure of their strategy?
In general, no. I think that if they got no, because you're not giving me a specific instance, and I don't. There are votes that they may be for or against. I don't know. Whatever.
You just said a moment ago that
people can look at the video, Jackson.
Okay, I would love to. You just said a moment ago that there is the potential for factions to form in Congress, and those factions can leverage their power. Did you not?
I don't know if I said that, but I agree with that statement.
Okay, so if you think that that is possible, and if the explicit goal of the Justice Democrats was to do just that, and if the reality of this session of Congress is they could have blocked certain votes that were, in my opinion, bad. Maybe in your opinion, I don't know what you think about those votes, but they could have blocked those votes to get concessions in return. They haven't done that. Don't you think that that is a failure of their strategy?
In general, no. I think that if they got no, because you're not giving me a specific instance, and I don't. There are votes that they may be for or against. I don't know.
So Sam says, "I don't know, and I don't care." A hell of a lot for someone who does a talk show about politics, right? If you don't know anything, if you don't care about anything, why are you there? Why are you there? So let's get down to the crux of what he's saying. Jackson basically laid out that the margins in the House are small enough that the few members of the squad actually have leverage because the margins are so low. If they vote as a block or refuse to vote as a block, they can hold up legislation that must be passed in order to extract whatever, vote on something, committee assignment, whatever you want the carrot to be. That is the strategy of force the vote, right? And the reason why it's possible is because the margins were so low. The Democrats had a very slim majority, so a small group of progressives could actually hold up legislation. The Justice Democrats were supposed to come in and do a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party. They were supposed to buck the establishment. They were supposed to work against it. And they're supposed to primary as many of the corporate Democrats as they can and replace them with progressives. We have a few progressives in there, and what has happened is they very quickly went from challenging Nancy Pelosi to serving Nancy Pelosi. And that, in essence, is the problem. AOC started her congressional career protesting Nancy Pelosi in her office with the Sunrise Movement, or one of those guys, one of those groups. She is now at the point where she calls Nancy Pelosi Mama Bear, and she's hinting that she'll support her again as Speaker of the House if the Democrats somehow held on to their majority. I don't see how anyone could see this as anything other than an objective failure. What has happened since the squad has entered Congress is they have stopped talking about Medicare for all. None of the, almost none of them talk about foreign policy in any meaningful way anymore. They all have shut their mouths about Israel. And the New York delegation, Jamal Bowman and AOC, have even, helped Israel get more money to murder Palestinian children. The Iron Dome vote, Operation Guardians of the Walls, where money is going towards murdering Palestinians, towards genocide, towards apartheid, whatever you want to call it. It seems as though the Democratic Party is changing the progressives who enter it, and it's not the progressives who are changing the Democratic Party. Now, the liberals will say they're the adults in the room, and they'll say, hey, listen, there's only a few progressives. We need more to make meaningful change. It's not enough for them to have a faction, right? If the margin in the House is 5 votes and we have 7 progressives, for someone like Sam, for some reason, he thinks it doesn't make sense to play hardball and extract what you want. He thinks it makes sense to bribe people to try and go along with progressive ideology. Meanwhile, they're getting bribed in way huger sums by corporations to never go along with progressive ideology. So I think liberals who agree with Sam Seder consider themselves the adult in the room and think they're seeing things clearly, but they actually have the most childish view of things. They really do. They really think that we're going to get 1,000 progressives in federal and state governments and that we're going to change the world. They really think that one day we'll have more progressives than corporatists in there by just primarying them one at a time and doing what Nancy Pelosi says and never really stepping out of line. And don't you forget that Trump is worse. I mean, the progressives are no longer challenging the Democratic Party in any meaningful way. I mean, the only fighting they've been doing for the past year is for Joe Biden's corporate agenda. And even the Democrats can't even pass his corporate agenda. It's like the Build Back Better is not some crazy lefty legislation. It's very corporate. It's very pro-corporate with a couple of small little scraps for the workers. I personally think the Justice Democratic model has purely been a failure. That being said, let's pretend the Democratic Party is a castle. I'm the leader of an army. We're making siege to that castle because we want to destroy that castle. That castle is placed on land where it's able to oppress and hold down the people, right? So I'm leading an army and I want to storm that castle. That castle is the Democratic Party. I would feel I'm in a better position if I had an army surrounding them outside of their walls, as well as people infiltrated inside the castle, right? I personally, I don't see any problem with some people working towards primarying Democrats, hostile takeover, etc. But what I do see a problem is those people mainly try to shit on the people with the opposite strategy, which is having a large raging army outside of the castle. I think it would behoove us to have both strategies. Here's the only problem, though. The people we keep sending inside the castle, they no longer work for our interests once they're inside the castle. They've just become part of that faction. You know, every once in a while, they might go out on a balcony and speak out to the armies outside and say, you know, we're working to change things from the inside here. But in reality, they're just serving the interests of the people inside the castle. I mean, we sent AOC in to be a disruptor in there, and now she is just taking orders from Nancy Pelosi. It's pretty pathetic. And yeah, Sam, he doesn't know anything, and he doesn't care.